Hi everybody, welcome back to the Creation Liberty Hour. This is show number 11 for August. We're in October now. October 24th, 2011. I'm Chris Johnson, the founder of Creation Liberty Evangelism, where we stand for the truth of God's Word, and we try to teach the truth of science and God's Word in the face of evolution, which is one of the most dangerous and dumbest religions in the history of mankind. So, before I get into some updates, I think I'm going to have Lorraine say hello. Say hello, Lorraine.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. Okay, she said hello. She's up and doing some other stuff today. So I'm probably going to be on my own for this podcast. And today we're going to discuss a couple things, some responses to things. We're also going to be discussing a question that was sent in by one of our people on our Facebook group, and we'll answer that shortly. So I think, you know what, actually, I just noticed this. I was looking at the computer screen. I actually kind of look and feel like Bob Barker when I'm holding this microphone. I didn't realize that till just now. Anyhow, so some updates on some of the new seminars I want to give you. We're actually beginning to release our DVD, uh, the very video of the seminar you would watch on our DVDs. We're releasing that for free on YouTube. You can watch those for free on our website, and we're going to offer a download option for those pretty soon. You'll be able to download those, and you can burn those to your own DVD, spread them out, as much as you want and all that. There isn't, as far as we have now, there is no copyright on our material. We are considering that, but that would be something in the future. That's only if we run into some problems, which I'm sure we will. As I've heard, other ministries will run into problems where atheists or evolutionists will alter people's words to make them say something they didn't say. And if it comes down to that, we will put a copyright on our material. But YouTube does have standardized copies or copyrights on just standardized material, so I don't think that'll be a big deal. But the point is that we've got two up right now. We've got Seminar 1 on the age of the earth and Seminar 2 on what the pre-flood world was like. Those are both available on our website. On the left-hand side, if you're joining us from the website, by the way, we are streaming from our website, and you can join in on the chat. For those of you, if anybody is viewing this on Ustream or anything, you can go to www.creationliberty.com and click on podcast and join us in the live chat there, where we have a couple viewers, and say hello to Jewel Owls and say hello to Caleb. Just saying hello to you guys, and you are in the chat right now, and some other guests that are in here who haven't signed in yet. So. But you can join us in the chat there. And if you're on the website, if you right-click on videos, and you can open in a new tab or duplicate tab, so that way it doesn't interrupt your the chat there, you can check out what we have available on there. And the ones with the pictures at the bottom are the ones that have been updated. The others are coming soon. But keep in mind, it takes a lot of work to get one of these streamed on high definition like we're doing. And I'm doing the best I can since I'm working kind of by myself. So. I think that's it for the updates. Oh yeah, one more thing we're going to update. We decided what we're going to do is I'm going to slowly start working on the project of making Adobe PDFs of a lot of our articles. So that way, if you guys want printable versions of our articles to hand out to someone, like for example, the Halloween article, which we're going to discuss. By the way, yes, we are going to, I realize that next Monday night is Halloween, and yes, we are still having our podcast. So for those Christians who are choosing not to participate in pagan holidays, you're more than welcome to join us on the podcast, and we will discuss why that is a pagan holiday next week. We're going to be discussing Halloween itself on Halloween night. So moving on here, I wanted to go into Clark from Idaho. Let me pull up his thing here. Clark from Idaho had sent me an email last week and was asking the following question. He says, is it possible for the first cell ever to be created, or formed rather, as the evolutionist would say. He says, is it possible for the first cell ever to be formed by the basic elements that were on the earth millions of years ago? Is it possible for life to come from non-living things? Excellent question, Clark, and I appreciate you sending that to us. Before I begin my response on this, I would like to show this because I have to mention this. I have all the time evolutionists to say, well, textbooks don't say that, and show me these textbooks and blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to show you one of them. I have tons of examples. I have examples on my website I'm going to direct you to in a moment, and I have examples on my slides, tons of different textbooks teaching this. These are up-to-date textbooks. These are modern textbooks being used, and this one was handed to me. Let me get this up here. This is It's a whole biology textbook that was used recently here in Indiana. And as you can see on here, okay, you've got what we're going to be discussing today about what we're calling the Miller-Urey experiment, okay? And I'm going to show you some of the things in here that it says. I don't have everything highlighted right now, but this is the kind of stuff that they're teaching in the public school right now uh, here in Indiana and in many other states. They are teaching this exact same thing. So let me go over to, I'm going to go through some of my slides here. Normally I discuss this on seminar number 4, but we don't have that available to stream online yet. But I am going to be making a recording of that here in the near future, and we're going to put that online for you to watch for free, or we'll put it, and we're also going to put it on DVD, and you can get that from us as well if you'd like. So, but the very fact that, a lot of people keep saying that, life got started from non-living material. This is some of the evolutionary claims. Now, I'm going to say, first off, before we begin, evolutionists generally deny this as part of the theory of evolution. Yet it is part of the theory of evolution, and it's taught as that way in the textbooks. That's why the average person keeps thinking that life getting started from non-living material is part of evolutionary process, even though the evolutionists keep saying it's not. Well, the reason people are getting that is because it's being taught in the public school system. And it's so funny that they don't make any effort to get it out of there, because it helps people believe in the general theory of evolution, and that's the whole point. Now watch this. This is a Holt biology, which I actually misspelled on this. I put holy biology. That's a big mistake. But Holt biology, it says the history of life on Earth began approximately 3.5 billion years ago. It states, how this occurred has been and will continue to be a topic of inquiry. Now think about what that just said. It's not okay to question if life evolved from non-living material. It's only okay to question how life evolved. You're not allowed to think outside the box when it comes to evolution, and that's what the textbooks are teaching. I've got another textbook here. This is a biology from Wadsworth, 92, that says the first living cells emerged between 4 billion and 3.8 billion years ago. And they at least admit this. They say there is no record of the event. Let's see here. There's another one. We have Whole Earth Science 94. It says that everything started as complex chemicals in a soup and that grew into a living organism very slowly. That's what they state in there. Let's see here. I'm looking at, right now, this one's from Science Daily at sciencedaily.com, an article that was posted August 16, 2005. It says a new theory that explains why the language of our genes is more complex than it needs to be. I would love to go into that one, but it's going to get us way too off topic because, they're calling, just like we talked about junk DNA, we talked about that on a different episode that of our show, and I'm not going to go into that right now. But it says, also suggests that the primordial soup where life began on Earth was hot and not cold, as many scientists believe. So here they are still teaching that the primordial soup is where life began on the Earth. This is taught all over the place, okay? And they still didn't, let's see here, both origins, let's see here, what was that from? Oh yeah, this is from Greuler Multimedia Encyclopedia, 1998. Both the origins of life and the origin of the major groups of animals remains unknown. So at least there are a few publications that are being honest and say, hey, we don't know. But there are still many textbooks that are teaching this as if it's fact. And every time they teach this, they always point to the Urey-Miller experiment. There's a lot of textbooks, at least more recently, since the creationists have been working really hard to get this out of the schools. A lot of textbooks have begun to back off of the origin of life, such like the first cell coming from soup. They've started to back off of that because there are so many people out there saying, look, you guys have no idea what you're talking about, and it's far too complex. The scientific evidence is so heavily against it, they started to back off of that in their general theory and try to limit it to life already being here, which is kind of ridiculous. But this textbook says that many important events occurred during the Archean era. This is from an Earth Science textbook, HBJ Earth Science. Many important events occurred during the Archean era, the most important of which, according to scientists, was the evolution of life, okay? So this is what they're teaching, and they have a big picture of the Miller-Urey experiment with all these test tubes, and he's got his lab coat on to make it look very scientific. That's what they do. But here's what happened, okay? Miller simulated the early Earth's conditions is what they claim in the textbooks. Okay, I've got the whole biology 2001 I referenced to earlier says specifically this: Miller simulated the early Earth's conditions, and then they concluded and said his experiment produced the chemicals of life. Again, see our seminar 4 when we get that one out. I will show you the images of these, but I can't do that on the podcast right now. However, so what the propaganda and the textbooks keep claiming this. Now, so first of all, we have to ask ourselves a question, because what he started with 4 elements, okay? Methane, ammonia, water vapor, and hydrogen. Those are the 4 things he used. I have a textbook here from Glencoe Biology showing these are the 4 things that he used. Now, before we even go further, I want you to stop for a moment and think about this. How would they possibly know these are the 4 chemicals that were on the early Earth 4 billion years ago, or 3.5 billion years ago, excuse me? Think about that. How could they possibly know? Well, the answer is they don't. See, those 4 chemicals are the 4 chemicals they need to make amino acids. So the thing is that's the reason they know what was there 3.5 billion years ago, is because they need those chemicals in order to create the amino acids. You see how this is not logical science whatsoever, okay? They're assuming that and then continuing on with their experiment. So this is a gigantic assumption that I would say they cannot get past, but they're assuming it anyway because they need some sort of scientific evidence for evolution, which is what they were trying to do with this experiment. So what he did is he ran chemicals through a spark. He had a bunch of test tubes, and he was running through these test tubes. He ran them through an electric spark to simulate lightning in the early atmosphere. And then he made a trap for after the lightning struck these chemicals, he made a trap for the leftover, for these, what was left over there. This is an extremely fictitious experiment, okay? First of all, if you imagine the oceans, you have a gigantic oceans, okay? There's no land yet, you just have these tons of oceans, or maybe there's land, who knows? But you have these big, large bodies of water. What is going to trap these chemicals? Think about that. You have all these chemicals swirling around the ocean. Lightning strikes the water. What is trapping the chemicals? Nothing. But here he has to have a trap, a fictitious trap, and this, it doesn't do anything. So, anyway, he ran them through this thing. After he ran them through, okay, this Glencoe Biology textbook talks about, and it says at about the same time that Miller discovered that the red goo at the bottom of his flask was rich in amino acids. It was also learned that the DNA carries the code for amino acids, okay? Now, first of all, he says it's a red goo that was rich in amino acids. This is deceptive, period. There's no easy way around this one, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you some points to consider. Number 1, the students are not told that he excludes oxygen in his experiment. Remember the four elements I told you he used. He used methane, ammonia, water vapor, and hydrogen. He purposefully excluded oxygen from this experiment, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, ozone is O3. It's made of oxygen, okay? Ozone blocks ultraviolet light from coming in. It doesn't block all of ultraviolet light, but it blocks some of it, okay? It blocks a great deal, actually. Ultraviolet light breaks down ammonia. And ammonia is one of the gases that he used. So he has to have ammonia to make the amino acids. So he needs the ozone layer there in order to block the ultraviolet light, so that way his ammonia doesn't break down. So he cannot get life to evolve without the oxygen there. He has to have it. But yet, if he includes the oxygen, the amino acids that he creates will break down. They oxidize, just like if you cut open an apple and you leave it set, it's going to brown, it's going to oxidize, okay? Things break down when they oxidize. That's what happens, when metal rusts, it oxidizes, it breaks down. And so the amino acids are going to break down as well. So you can't get life to evolve without oxygen. So if you can't get life to evolve with oxygen, and you can't get life to evolve without oxygen, I think it's safe to say you can't get life to evolve. There's problems on both sides. So, and this is stuff that they don't teach in the textbooks. This is from, let's see here, Dimroth and Kimberly on a scientific paper they wrote for the Canadian Journal of Earth Sciences called Precambrian Atmosphere Oxygen Evidence in the Sedimentary Distributions of Carbon, Sulfur, Uranium, and Iron. This is on in September 1976. You'll find that they said, in general, we find no evidence in the sedimentary distribution of carbon, sulfur, uranium, or iron that an oxygen-free atmosphere has existed at any time during the span of the geological history recorded in well-preserved sedimentary rocks. So in English, this basically means they look in these rocks and they say, we have always had oxygen on this planet. It's obvious from what we see. No matter how old you think the Earth is, the scientific evidence is showing that we've always had oxygen in our atmosphere. So why would he exclude the oxygen? Because his experiment would be null and void. Okay, so it's a totally fictitious experiment, but yet the textbooks still seem to be fooling people over and over. I have a Discover Biology, it's Discover Biology 2000 textbook, and it shows a chart. And I show this in my seminar number 4. When you get this up, you'll have to go watch my seminar number 4 when I get it up on my website. I'll post that on the Facebook group. So if you want to keep in touch with us there, just join our Facebook group, and that'll give you the updates. But this chart shows a percentage of present-day oxygen levels. It starts from 0 and it goes all the way up to 100. 100 is the present-day oxygen. 0 is no oxygen, obviously. Okay, but it starts off, 3.5 to 4 billion years ago in the chart, and it says, of course, it's at the very bottom where it says there is no oxygen. But then there's a little line and a little note that says the rocks absorbed oxygen. Okay, explain to me how the rocks can absorb something that's not there. You realize that they put this in a science textbook and they call this science. And they're teaching it to the next generation. This is being taught in the public school system right now. The people that write this kind of stuff. My question is, where are the Christians fighting against this junk? This should not be taught. And I'll read this straight to you. This is from my seminar. It says, the textbooks also don't tell the students that 98% of the substances produced from this experiment were tar and carboxylic acid. These two substances are deadly to life. The amino acids will bond faster to tar than they will with each other. The experiment is obviously a failure when the substance they made was 98% toxic to what they were trying to create. You see, the reason they needed this trap, because if they left it out there, it was going to die instantly because everything that was created with it was poisonous. And they claim, and let me go back and repeat for you the words that came from Holt Biology 2001. They said Miller simulated the Earth's early conditions. According to their evolution theory, no, he didn't. He wasn't anywhere close to it. And they said his experiment produced the chemicals of life. How deceptive can you get? Okay? And I tell people all the time, I said, if you take a frog and put it in a blender, turn it on high. Once you shut it off, you have everything you need to create a frog. All the elements are there, okay? Now you have frog nog at this point, but how long, if you leave it sit there, is it going to take for that frog to reproduce itself? It'll never happen. It just will not happen. It's zero. It can't happen that way. So the point is that you have this extraordinary complex DNA code that they just believe that instantly, poof, there it is. And we're good to go. That's what they believe, okay? They also have to go into the issue, and I'll talk about that in a minute, of the amino acids and how they have to be ordered. But keep in mind, they only produced 2 amino acids, okay? 20 amino acids are required for life. And you have to have all the amino acids in the correct order, and they have to be positioned right-handed or left-handed in the correct order, okay? The odds of this happening by random chance and having an efficient trap and the correct lightning spark with the correct voltage and not to be poisoned from all this tar, it's 0. You're not going to have this happen, and you're not going to, basically creating a few amino acids is like creating a few letters when you need Webster's dictionary, okay? You're not, by throwing a few letters, you get some of those magnetic alphabet pieces, throw a few of them on a table, you're not going to create Webster's dictionary from that. And what you need is far more complex. I think let me double check on the website here. I need to go back and because, like I said, education is knowing or not knowing everything. It's knowing where to find everything, and I write a lot of this down. Let's see here. We're looking at that, and by the way, this is I don't want to try to pronounce this. I'll try to pronounce this guy's last name, Prigogine or Prigogine. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. P-R-I Go Guinea, I guess. But he won a Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1976. Okay, he was quoted in a book called Beyond a Reasonable Doubt in 2005. This is what he said. The statistical probability that organic structures and the most precisely harmonized reactions that typify living organisms could have been generated by accident is zero. The guy who won a Nobel Prize in chemistry. Okay, so if you guys, for you evolutionists that want to respect the authorities of man and want to put all this emphasis on these scientists, well, here's a guy who won a Nobel Prize in chemistry saying, look, it can't happen. Period. So if you want to argue with him, you're more than welcome to argue with him. Okay. Um, and let me see. I was going to talk about. I think. I think I covered most of what I wanted to cover there. Um, and I have more references even beyond that on my website. If you guys want to check it out, the place to find this, if you're on the website right now at www.creationliberty.com, you can right-click on articles, and if you scroll down, or right-click and open a new tab if you want to, so it doesn't interrupt your chat. But you can scroll down and find. It should be close to the top. It's an article called "The Incredible Edible DNA," and if you at the top there should be a section, contents, labeled "Has life been created in the laboratory?" If you click on that, that'll take you to the section that talks about this, and there's all sorts of references. You can actually look at the textbook publishers and what they have written about it right off the website, and you can read all the scientific quotations right there. They're all referenced, and the bottom line is this. Okay, this is from Philip Abelson, who wrote a paper to the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. His paper was entitled "Chemical Events on the Primitive Earth." He said, "What is the evidence for a primitive methane ammonia atmosphere on Earth? The answer is that there is no evidence for it, but much against it." So the entire experiment, I mean, there are many scientists out there that will say, and ones that even believe in evolution, but they'll say, look, this experiment that he made is completely fictitious. But yet, as we see in the textbooks, it's taught as a fact that helped prove that life came from soup 3.5 to 4 billion years ago. That is, it's crooked. It's absolutely, it's flat out lies. That needs to be taken out of our textbooks and stop teaching this junk. And then I have people say, you'll hear an evolutionist, they'll say, well, what if they do make life in the laboratory? What are you going to say then? Well, I'll say if a bunch of intelligent scientists get together and create life in the laboratory, I guess that proves it takes intelligence to make life, which is what I've been saying all along. So it's only going to prove the creation position. It's not going to prove the evolution position, because even if you do it in the laboratory, you can't prove it happens in nature that way. So you've got a bunch of serious problems on this one. I'm going to check the chat on these things. I was going to check the chat and see what kind of comments or questions we might have, because if I'm working by myself right now, I got to go back and take a look at this. Jewel from Indiana says, I want to know who funded this experiment. That's a very good question. Generally, the people that will fund, I mean, because first of all, you have to stop and consider a lot of this, there's grant money that goes into a lot of these kind of things. I mean, they will, petition, sometimes they petition the government for grants, which means this comes out of your pocket sometimes. Other times they have private grants, that comes from, some rich person that, that likes the evolution theory and they want to try to provide evidence for evolution. It really depends, but, there are an awful lot of things that are done out there, where people are, going and digging up fossils trying to provide evidence for evolution. Even though no fossil can prove evidence for evolution, there is no evidence for evolution from fossils whatsoever. But they spend all their time, you know, digging for bones in the dirt. Well, I've seen dogs do that, but we don't pay their salary while they do it, okay? And I don't think we should be paying the salary of these people to go and try to provide evidence for something that isn't true to begin with. Let me see from some of these other comments here. And sorry, let me look at this for just a second. Let's see here, contradicting. Jewel from Indiana also says, I'm so glad that the majority of my children don't buy the lies in the textbooks, even though they went to public school. Well, that's a good thing. I'm glad they don't too. So it's unfortunately there are a lot of people that are buying into that, and that's part of the problem. I mean, that's why we do these episodes. That's why we're trying to educate as much as we can to say that look, the Bible is the foundation for knowledge, not the public school textbooks. Okay, and the problem is, you have a bunch of these teachers that will not, I mean, they'll go and teach what they're taught to teach in the public school system. And I know there's some good godly teachers in the public school system, don't get me wrong, who won't teach this junk, but there's a lot of people teaching it thinking it's a fact. Now they'll go to a textbook, and if they find a math book that says 2 plus 2 equals 5, they will tell the students, mark out the wrong answer and write in the right answer here. And they'll tell them to write in a 4. But when you come to the science textbook, you say, hey, students, ignore this section. This was proven wrong a long time ago. We're not even going to learn about this. But they don't do that stuff, okay? Which really makes them hypocrites. They would deface a textbook in order to correct a problem they know is wrong. But if it's something that supports the evolution theory, which they believe in, and supports their lifestyle, which is what it all really comes down to, then they don't have too much to say about it. So I'm checking. I don't think we have any questions in the chat right now. So I'm going to move on to something else here for just a moment. Probably end this pretty soon. I'm not going to go on too long today because I don't feel like my voice is going to handle it for too much longer. Anyhow, I'm not sure. Did I bring water? I don't think I brought water out here today. So I was looking at one of the people on here that was making some comments on our seminar 1 after I got this posted because of course people are going to jump all over this and get upset about it. I had a guy on here that was very interesting talking about. His name is ECOI1. I have no idea what exactly that means. Actually, I'm going to go to his channel real quick. Let me find out. I'll see if he's got something on here that I don't know whether he's going to play something on here. I'm trying to find out. All he says he's a libertarian, so that answers a few questions actually. So, anyway, let's see here. And going down, he starts to complain about how when I was talking about the star formation, we're back on this one again, okay? If you want to know, first of all, if this guy's listening, if you want to know more about the star formation, the problem with the arguments on it, you need to go to I believe it's episode number 8 of this podcast, and go look that up. It's on our YouTube channel. You can go watch that, and that's where we talk about some of the false arguments they make. Because on here, and I'll read you what he said, he says, funny because astrophysicists have already taken into account thermal pressure, angular momentum, and magnetic fields, interestingly enough, that all fight star formation more than you mentioned. However, given enough mass, gravity always wins. The time it takes is a different story. Let's stop right there and analyze what exactly this guy just said. Because he says the time it takes is a different story. What he's telling us is, of course we don't see these things happening today because it takes too long. But given enough time, stop right there. After that sentence, it doesn't matter what you say because that's your religious belief. If you want to use time becomes your God then. It becomes the thing that you worship because time is the thing that makes all things happen. So time is the almighty, all-powerful God of your religion at that point. And then he says, however, given enough mass, gravity always wins. Well, we talked about that on episode 8, about how what they're claiming is once you get enough gases massed up and massed up and massed up, eventually gravity just sucks them all in and it becomes, he says, poof, there you go, star. Well, first of all, go watch that episode. It's going to show you why this is incorrect. But I would like to point out here, what he's doing is exactly the guy that I talked about in that episode. This guy is doing the exact same thing that guy's did. He's just doing it in a different arena. What I was arguing is that the gases cannot mass up like this. That Boyle's gas law is going to prevent that from happening. So what does the evolutionist do? He ignores the creationist argument, skips ahead in time, where the gases are already massed together, and then takes it from there. This is the exact same thing they do, especially with the origin of life situation. They don't talk about how this life first got started or where it came from. They just say, okay, well, once life is here, now we have all these theories. Okay, this doesn't explain to us the entire theory. Okay, you're jumping ahead with something that is already complex and then leaving the assumptions and then trying to say, oh, well, these astrophysicists or these biologists and everybody, I'm sure they have already calculated for all this stuff. Okay, well, that's the problem. That's the assumption. You see, that's why I talked about the guy named Helical 4. Did I talk about that last? I think I may have talked about him last week. That on his site, he admitted, he says, there are many assumptions about evolution, and that is one of them. The evolutionists commonly assume that scientists have accounted for these different arguments that, not just myself, like I'm making on here, but that other creationists are making, saying, look, what you're teaching here is not part of science, it's part of what you religiously believe. And that's why, I think it's so much safer to stand on the foundations of the Bible and the foundations of Jesus Christ, which have not been proven wrong, than to stand on the foundations of the opinions of opinions of certain evolutionists who've never been proven right. I mean, their assumptions have never been proven right. And right now we have no scientific ways of verifying those things. Now, if they want to believe that they do or believe in these things, that's great. I've told the evolutionists many times, I don't care what you believe. You are welcome to have any dumb religion you want in this country. I don't care what you want to believe in. But first of all, I don't want to have to pay taxes for your religion to be taught at my expense in the public school system to the next generation, and then I have to take my time on nights like this to try to de-brainwash or unbrainwash, I think that's the word, not de-brain, unbrainwash the students from what I'm being forced to pay for in the public school system. I mean, this is unbelievable that we're allowing this kind of thing to happen. And second of all, you're welcome to believe that. But when you go off and tell people, I have scientific evidence for this, now you're telling a lie. You're telling something that is not true. You're welcome to your theories. But you don't go and lie and say that you have evidence for that theory, okay? And that's something that, when you're watching the show and you see this stuff, if you go off and tell people, hey, we have evidence for star formation, or hey, we have scientific evidence of life coming from non-living material, you're lying to those people. And Christians and creationists listen very carefully. If someone comes along and tells you, well, they proved that life could come from non-living material in the laboratory, immediately you should already know this person has no idea what they're talking about. And here's the thing, send them to the website, let them check that stuff out, and I'll try to have Seminar 4 out as soon as I can. And once I get Seminar 4 out, you can send them the link, or you can download the video, send them the file, or burn it on a DVD, or you can purchase a DVD from us. By the way, I should mention that all of our DVDs, they were previously $15. They're now $9. We took the price down because, in my opinion, we took some bad advice. I want to follow Christ. I want to follow the Holy Spirit. I want to follow God. We decided to make them $9. Okay, we don't make much off of them, but there you go. At least you can get them, and we want to try to help win people to Christ. That's what this is all about, okay? The thing is, evolution does not have a leg to stand on, and this is just another topic. I really do like it, especially when people send me questions. Clark, thank you so much for sending me that question. And the reason I like this is because we can handle these things one topic at a time. I like really being able to dig in this and do this when we have the time to do it. However, the point that I want to make here to a lot of people, and I'm going to keep making this point in every cast that I can, is that the evolution has no evidence for it. You have to believe in it. And a lot of people choose to believe in that just because it gives them freedom from God. It gives them freedom from the thou shalt nots, like thou shalt not commit adultery. They don't want to listen to these thou shalt nots. They don't want to have any limitations on their life, and so therefore they reject the Creator. And that's exactly what's happening here. So I'm here to tell you, look, the Bible is true. It is accurate when it comes to science. It may not be a science book. It's not a science book, but when it deals with science, it's correct. And if it's correct on these issues, it's probably correct about a lot of issues, like Jesus Christ and His salvation. And the message for the world that, look, if you don't have salvation in Christ and you don't put your trust and faith in Him, you're going to end up in hell. And I don't want that for anybody, and this is the exact reason we do these podcasts at night. So anyhow, I think that's all I'm really going to cover today. I didn't really prepare too much material for tonight. I didn't want to go for a full hour because of my voice. Let me check the chat tonight. Somebody's laughing at the frog nog, which basically, that's what it is. I mean, I don't know what it is, anything else. Let's see here. Caleb says by the physical laws of time, there has to be a beginning, and that beginning demands material to come from nothing. A God not bound by time is the only explanation possible for this. I agree, Caleb, and I need to add in another thing that, on top of that, and we cover this, I guess maybe I should just send people, if you want to cover, I have an article called Christian Ministries Teaching Evolution. If you read that article, that will explain to you why that somebody who is trying to worship a God that would use evolution, that's not the God of the Bible. You've created a God. If you want to say God used evolution, you have created a God in your mind that suits to your personal wants and your, whatever it is you want him to, a lot of people are trying to accept, preach to people about a God that would use evolution because you're going to lose, the people who might believe in evolution or don't want to cause any ruffles or ruffle anybody's feathers or cause any ripples in the pond. They tend to want to try to combine the Bible with evolution, and that's what was happening all before the big creation movement got started back in the '60s. The point, what the Christians were doing were compromising their Bible for almost 100 years, while the evolutionists just moved in and took control of things. Well, I'm here to say, Jesus Christ doesn't approve of that junk. And the Bible says in Exodus 20:11 that God made it in 6 literal 24-hour days, roughly 6,000 years ago. He did it. He made it in 6 days and rested the seventh day. It's very clear. So the question is, do you believe that? If you don't believe that, then you don't believe the God of the Bible. You don't believe in the Jesus Christ of the Bible. It's plain and simple as that. So I don't think we have any questions, any other questions from the chat channel right now. We'll be back next week again. We're going to talk about Halloween next week and what the pagan ties to that. It'll shock you if you don't already know about some of the pagan cult type things that are connected to it and why so many churches, it's shocking to me why churches and pastors celebrate this and try to encourage Christians to celebrate Halloween is unbelievable to me. We'll discuss more on that next week. But next week is going to be October 31st. It'll be Monday at 7 p.m. We're going to be right back here. Chat will open at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So join us then, and we'll discuss some more. Until then, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us.